Welcome to Peer Talk, a dialogue with business owners just like you. Peer Talk conversations run the gamut of business challenges facing owners today. The host of Peer Talk is Dan Crowley, founder and owner of Peer Executive Groups, which provides a safe space for owners to share their experience, grow their businesses, and learn from their peers.
Okay, welcome to Peer Talk. There are a number of great business owners out there, just like yourself, who would love to share their experiences with you, and we hope to give them a voice. Today's episode features two special guests, peer group member Allan Haynsworth from Atlantic Lift Systems in Norfolk, Virginia, and David Olson, his consultant and peer group vendor. We will be looking at David's consulting application, CoreValues, which allows the business owner to work on growing the value of their company. Allan Haynsworth joined his family business, Atlantic Lift Systems, in Norfolk, Virginia back in 2002 and rose to the presidency by 2012. He has expanded the business to Hampton and Richmond, Virginia, and has begun asset expansion beyond lifts to compact equipment and other construction equipment. Allan has received multiple awards, including being a two-time Top Gun recipient from Peer Executive Groups for financial excellence. David Olson is a senior M&A advisor for BMI Mergers and Acquisitions and helps peer group members and other small businesses with improving their business value as well as preparing for succession or exit.
Okay, so the problem we're going to address today is that rental owners don't know what they don't know when it comes to increasing their value of their business and also having a smoother running operation. So Allan, why don't we start with you? Why don't you give us a little background on yourself and your business and how you came to this place where you found out a little bit about business development you wanted to do.
So I've been in the business about 20 years and got into it a couple years out of college. It's been a family business and I'd never planned on getting into the business. I had bigger aspirations and I love to cook. I thought I'd open a restaurant. I spent a couple of years in there, in that field, and became a little disenchanted and didn't want the late hours like that had or in that capacity. And so I moved back home from Atlanta, Georgia, and my dad asked me to come on board with him and give it a go. And even at that time, I didn't think I'd stay in the business. And but it's like the Godfather, you keep trying to get out and they keep pulling you back in. And we were a forklift dealership at the time, though, and the industry was changing. The manufacturer wanted to eat off the plate more and more, the dealer, and our revenue was basically sales and service. And we had a small rental business, small rental fleet that we primarily rented to the Navy. And as time went on, when I joined in 2002, by 2012, when I took over, there was more consolidation and more eating off the plate. And I basically made a decision to get into the aerial business because it suited our Navy rental business. And so we didn't do the typical buy a 60-foot boom or some electric scissor lifts. We went straight for the big stuff, bought, 5 135s, and then it was some 120s, and then more, 135s. And within a 3 to 5 year period, we had, 30 plus ultra booms in our fleet. And then our manufacturer, we had a less than a good relationship, and so we started buying more and more aerials and other type of rental equipment, compressors, dirt equipment, because we felt we'd be separating at some point in the near future and wasn't sure when. And so we had a really strong growth rate up until about between 2012 and 2018. We were probably doubling the size of our rental fleet every year, and in revenue and equipment. And in 2018, we hit a flat spot, and we've really been stuck there. And so in joining the different groups that I've joined, one being your peer group, Dan, and talking to other operators, we needed something. Didn't have a strong management team. or don't. And so I didn't feel EOS was the answer for us. And you introduced me to David, who does core values. And so that's how we are, how we ended up getting on this platform.
So before we move over to David, I just wanted to do a quick, what would you say your strengths were? So you became operator, key person in 2012. There's a people person, a people management person, there's a financial guru, numbers person. Where do you fit into the landscape? Did you know equipment? What would you consider your strengths as a CEO?
I did not know equipment from the standpoint of all the stuff that's out there with rentals, small tools, compressors, all that stuff. But I do have an ability to learn quickly, so I learned about the aerial stuff pretty quickly. I do have an ability to leverage my relationships, and I have an ability to take risks. And I understood the financial aspect of it, so I felt comfortable with the risks and the return. And but we've gotten to a point where process is needed. And I'm a process guy to a certain standpoint, and I know processes are needed, but I just care about results more. And I don't want to hear about all the process in between. And so this is where David's kind of helping me work through some of that.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's move over to David. David, why don't you introduce yourself and your company and the products that you're offering and how you came into play, how you ended up working with Allan.
Sure, absolutely. So thanks for having me on your podcast, Dan, and it's been a pleasure working with Allan for the last few months. I'm a senior M&A advisor with a firm called BMI Mergers and Acquisitions. I have over 20 years of experience working with business owners, consulting primarily on growth and helping them grow their businesses, and not necessarily focused on the transition of their business, but just purely on the growth piece. I ran across CoreValue as a tool for business consultants that are focused on growth and M&A. A number of years ago, I became certified and adopted it into my practice of consulting and helping business owners think about not just growing the top line of their business, but growing the value of the business, which is a big difference. Just because you grow your top line doesn't mean your business is more attractive or can sell at a higher rate. You still need to have a profitable business, and there's really a lot of drivers that impact whether a business is attractive to that next buyer. And it really matters with small business owners because about 85% of the typical business owner has their overall wealth tied up into that business. And so it's really critical that they grow that particular part of their wealth and they protect it. And it's really sad when you see small business owners kind of let the business have a slow death, and it really impacts their retirement and their legacy and what they're doing with their children and everything. So to be able to shift, what's that, Dan?
No, go ahead.
So to be able to shift from just being focused on helping business owners grow their company to helping them grow their value, and then helping them in that transition toward some sort of sale or transfer of some sort is really important. And the reality is 100% of businesses are going to transfer somewhere, somehow. And so CoreValue is a very different tool. Allan mentioned EOS. You can't even compare the two. So CoreValue, really, they would call themselves a value growth software, whereas EOS is more of a strategy management software tool. So they're completely different.
So what's interesting is, core values, first off, epiphany for me, core values make sense, right? You're improving the value of the business. I'm thinking this whole time, oh, it's the values of the company, the rules of the road, how they present themselves to others, their values scheme. Didn't connect the dots into core values being about valuation, value of the company. Second part to that is, it does seem to me that even though everybody does transition at some point, there's no reason to engage core values because you're thinking about selling or looking to sell in the future. It's actually just a dynamite way to increase your biggest asset, which is the value of your company, right? So, I mean, would you say that? So you may find with the ones that you've implemented that a number have gone ahead and transferred their business, but there's also obviously the business efficiencies and benefits of just increasing the value of your largest asset.
Yeah, absolutely. What core value does is it gets the business owner focused on 18 drivers that impact the value. 9 of the drivers are market-related drivers. The other 9 are operational drivers. And when the business owner walks through and assesses and understands how they're doing within best practices on all those drivers, yes, they're increasing the value of their business as they implement strategies to improve, but they're also improving the business that helps everybody within the business. It helps them see their compensation rise over the years. And so it really has an impact beyond just, oh, I want to sell my business. It's really about growing a healthy business where you can watch your value grow.
Okay, so how many of these drivers do the two of you remember? So we're not going to go to David first. We're going to go to Allan first. Give me a few of the drivers that make up these 18 drivers that you would assess at the beginning.
HR, legal, financial, operational, marketing, sales. I mean,
pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's what and then I feel like they break some of those up too
into subs.
Yeah.
How about David?
So a number of those that Allan mentioned are the operational drivers.
Gotcha.
So sales and marketing come together. Senior management is an operational driver. The strength of senior management has a huge impact on the value of the company. Other market drivers include growth, history of growth, recurring revenue, your brand in the marketplace, what kind of margin advantage you have, barriers to entry within the market, product differentiation, customer diversification, market share, innovation. So there's a lot of parts of the business drivers that really potentially impact the business. And I think it's about 95% of businesses have one of those drivers, of the 18 drivers, that is in such disrepair that it would make them difficult to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, you may not want to sell your business or transfer your business for 10 or 15 years, but you should still be thinking about creating a healthy business that at least all your options are open.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so how does one begin the implementation process? Did you send like a book to Allan that he had to fill in an assessment? I'm picturing like this 100 questions or something. Was it something like that to get it kicked off?
I think I answered like 18 questions, Dan.
Oh, wow.
Originally to see if I was interested. And then from there we went, and it's more than 100 questions, I can tell you.
Excellent. And then David, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
It's really it's like doing due diligence on yourself.
Yeah.
So there are literally, through the whole process, we probably unpack about 240 areas.
Wow.
That we talk about, we walk through, we answer them, we come up with initiatives, there's recommended tasks, but then we also create some custom activities to do. And so it's really about seeing where there's weaknesses, addressing those weaknesses, and coming up with plans and then implementing them.
So, and I'll ask you this, Allan. Is this something that you literally are there by yourself? Is anybody participating in the initial steps with you on your side?
Yeah, I mean, I went through everything initially, answering all the questions by myself. I now have someone who's heading up sales and marketing, and so they're going to be answering to half of the drivers, and trying to increase on those and margin and everything. And Dave and I worked through some tasks for that person, or goals to work through on those drivers, and we're actually going to be meeting in the next week to go over all that stuff.
Okay. And the mechanism, are you guys capturing this in like a workbook, or is there software, or how's that look?
Dave, you want to take it?
Yeah, it's a software. Actually, the section of the dashboard, when Allan logs into his dashboard, his software platform, there is a section called Workbook. So literally, all 18 drivers exist within the workbook. But then there's different parts of his dashboard you can go to. You can go toward recommended tasks. You can go toward the tasks that he's already selected. It becomes almost like a project management tool.
Gotcha.
With deadlines and activities and customizations. But it's really geared toward the business owner, helping the business owner be focused on growing a healthy value for their business. So it's less focused on, from what I understand with EOS, that's more focused on being able to put everybody together on a platform so they can do kind of management meetings and whatnot. This is more of a platform where Allan and I work together, keeping him focused on what he needs to be focused on to improve value. It's really more of a one-on-one coaching tool.
Gotcha. Okay.
But then we can also bring in, for example, his new VP of Sales and Marketing. We can bring him in on the initiatives we're working on and help him, include him in making some of those tactics that we need to come up with for the different plans, the growth plans.
Okay. So let me turn to Allan. So Allan, you have been at this. Why don't you share a little bit with the listeners about where you're at? How do you decide what's a priority and the time frame on what you work on? Is that something directed from David and Core Values, or is it something that you establish? What's that look like?
Well, David and I meet roughly once a week, maybe twice, depending on the week. We look at all the different drivers, what can fundamentally make the business more valuable.
Gotcha.
In some aspects. And then we also look at what are little easy tasks that could be done to get picked off to reduce the overall task load. So it's a mix of those, and then what I have capacity to do at the time also.
I've seen the software, and it looks like it does operate with that SMART goal perspective of, hey, we're going to assign this task to this person, and let's put a time frame on it. Is that pretty accurate? Is that how it kind of breaks out the different action items?
Yeah, it's some of that's David drilling in and setting that up, and then some of it I can go do.
Gotcha. So what stage are you at this point? What have you completed? What do you see as next being a priority for your team?
Really, right now, our biggest driver is to get revenues up.
Gotcha. Increase revenue.
Yeah. Dave's working on getting a customer survey out with my VP, Bert, and my marketing administrator, Julie, to kind of gauge the temperature of how customers feel about us and what we do well, what we don't, and a net promoter score if they would recommend us. And so we're sending that out, I think, in the next couple of days, right, Dave?
Yeah, we're going to do our final review, I believe, this afternoon. But with the holiday coming up, we'll probably start launching next Tuesday.
Gotcha. And so my question for you, David, with regard to this, you've had experience with other consulting services that you've provided over the years. I've known you for a couple decades. It seems like you guys are on an accelerated action implementation, working on the business. It just seems like maybe it's taking the owner out of the business, getting them to work on the business at a little faster clip, or just a more thorough clip. What's your opinion on that, David?
It does, Dan, and I think every consultant is different, and and you know me, the type of consultant that I am is I don't want to tell you what time it is after I look at your watch. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is I'm big into implementation. Mm-hmm. So I want to drive through the data and the analysis as quickly as possible and get my clients toward implementation. Mm-hmm. And so the nice thing about Core Value is it does get you through that assessment phase, help you get focused on the areas that could improve your business and improve the value, and then immediately get you toward implementation and action items. So for me, I like that. And the way I use Core Value is as we're going through the process of building out the growth plan, the value plan with Allan, which we should be wrapped up in the next month. I also try to find some areas that we can check off the list, some tasks, like as Allan mentioned, that, for example, we're going to implement a business intelligence survey. Mm-hmm. And I want to do some implementation of activities with the client during the engagement so that, number one, we're moving some balls forward, we're getting some first downs. Maybe we'll throw a touchdown by the time we're done with the 90-day project and engagement. But in this case, with the business intelligence survey, we're going to gather a ton of customer data that's going to help direct some of the other growth initiatives that we're working on. So I think that answers your question about driving toward implementation quickly.
It does, actually, and it led me to another question just hearing you speak there. So one of the initiatives you guys are obviously working on is focusing on your customers and understanding the customer segment. That's not typical in Allan's industry, which is the rental industry. There's usually not a lot of energy put around customer research or understanding that. Allan, why don't you speak briefly to where you see that value coming in and how you might apply that over the next year if you're getting good info on your customers?
So we signed on with Salesforce and we're going through an implementation with them. Mm-hmm. Because we've not had a CRM in the past, and so we're trying to segment everything so that we can do drip campaigns based off segment and set up certain marketing events towards those segments, depending if it's a electrician or a site guy or caulking and foundation guy, whatever it may be. We can focus wholly on those. If we have a bunch of equipment and it's all the same type of equipment sitting, that we can focus on that segment. So we're working. I mean, when David came along and he wanted to do this, it was great because we want to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. And so we're setting a lot of that up in Salesforce, and that's going to be our marketing tool because we signed on with the Salesforce marketing tool. So we're, for us, it's a huge thing to get the segmentation and really try to get granular on the customer level from, how many employees they have, how much volume we think that they do from a rental standpoint, what type of work that they do, where they're located, because we want to start being able to filter down in on that information and, seeing who our best customers are and who are not, so we can kind of focus on that type of customer.
Gotcha.
Or not focus, depending on what they are.
Well, it's interesting because you think of Atlantic Lift Systems as being a lift company. You're renting lifts. Yeah. You obviously rent other compact equipment, different tools and equipment. But I think this will be an interesting exercise to see if it changes anything and possibly if you go deeper with certain categories of lifts or something like that based on what you find.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the drivers is brand. Now that you say it, reminds me, and our name has always been something that we kind of question. Does it fit what we need? And a lot of times people go, I didn't know you did that. I thought you were an elevator company. Because I think the systems really throws it off. If it was just an Atlantic lift, it might be fine. But when we add the systems, it becomes, oh, you're the elevator company, aren't you? And we're like, no, that's not anything that we do. But so brand is one of the drivers, and that's going to be a discussion for us, but more so in the near future than later, because if we try to open up more branches, I don't want to, forget if we do change our name, I don't want it to be, for 6 locations or 5 locations. I want it to be for what it is now.
Excellent. And you, and since you've been, in the year of 2020, you've been dealing with obviously the coronavirus and what's happening to, the workplace. How have you fared? How has the business done during this period?
So when it first happened, April and May were a little slower. We were flat to maybe 5 to 10% off. Mm-hmm. But our business has actually picked up through June, July, and August. We have some good pipelines. We find that some of our competitors are struggling. We're probably about to get some equipment kicked off from our competitors, and we'll be replacing them because they can't respond from a service standpoint. So, yeah, we're in a pandemic and we have a lot of uncertainty with stuff, but we feel like in the long run, service is going to be the driver, because if you can't service the client, they don't really care. And we see that the bigger players are struggling with that right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, David, from your perspective, on the same topic, we have a number of members in the peer executive groups and a number of people listening today who have businesses. Is this a good time to take a step back and work on the business? I'm setting you up for this, but tell us what your business has been like the last 3-4 months.
Well, what I'm finding, not just with my business, but I have a couple, all kinds of activities between clients, between some other businesses that I'm a part of. Everybody is needing to retool, re-engineer, reimagine, regroup, and for survival reasons. And so what I'm finding is that those who are thinking forward and thinking about growth are stepping back, and they're being thoughtful about what's their next move. And if you just try to keep moving into the future, doing things the way you were in the past, you're probably going to have a tough time in this next season. So really, the smart business owners are stepping back. I'm not saying they have to use core value to do that process. Core value is helping the business owner be really focused about making sure that they're doing things in a healthy manner. But all in all, as a business owner, you need to be thinking about doing things differently. And so Allan, the nice thing from when I got involved with Allan is he already had embraced some new technology that he's adopting into his business. And he was already making some of these moves even before COVID, if I got the timeline right. So Allan was kind of moving through this pretty well, and that's encouraging.
Well, we appreciate your words of wisdom. And Allan, I'll give you the last say. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you what the picture of Atlantic lift systems might look like a year from now, hopefully after the everybody gets the vaccine.
We're hoping to, get back on the growth trail. We're trying, working on the processes, and we've come a long way in that. And we'd potentially like to open another location in the next year. So we'll see how it all pans.
And develop develop those leader employees, right? Those leadership team there.
Yeah, and develop myself too, because I need it.
Well, I appreciate your guys' time today. Again, Allan Haynsworth from Atlantic Lift Systems and David Olson from BMI Mergers and Acquisitions. David, we'd love to have you back on to maybe do a YouTube video with some screen activity of your tool, so we can see some of the software for our customers. So we appreciate that. But thanks for joining us,
do that.
guys. Next week, check in with Peer Talk for another edition. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
You've been listening to Peer Talk from Peer Executive Groups, produced and directed by Noah Crowley and hosted by Dan Crowley. Subscribe to this podcast for notifications of future episodes of Peer Talk.